Previously on the Game On podcast.
Fair enough. And then obviously we alluded before that you got your chance to come back to Norwood and you held that position until 1995. Some memories there?
Yeah. I have very fond memories of that time. I think it was 5 years I was at Norwood. The first 2 or 3 were really tough years because I think that was the same time. I think I started in 91, I think, 91, yep. 92. Yeah, 91.
Start of the
and I reckon that was the first year of the Crows.
Yep.
And so it was an interesting time because there were a lot of players taken from the SANFL clubs, to play for the Crows, is the way it was set up. And then, those guys that didn't play for the Crows would come back to your club. And I was a young coach. I was a young, aggressive coach. I was a black and white coach in terms of my thinking.
Yeah.
So there was a fair bit of anxiety created between the Norwood Football Club and the Adelaide Football Club, and then probably most of my doing. So that was a good learning process. And I think when I first went to Norwood as a senior coach, they hadn't been out of the finals for 22 years or something like that. And in my first 2 years, we missed the final. So, with players, going to the Adelaide Football Club and back and forth, we missed the final. So it was a tough period from coaching. And I hadn't had any experience as coach. So in a lot of ways, like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. But once again, to the credit of Wally Miller and the support that he gave me, and the encouragement to keep going and to make some errors, but to be myself, if you like. We eventually sort of regrouped. I think we played in the grand final
in '93 against Woodville West Torrens.
And we got a bit of a touch-up.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, once again joined by Malcolm and Neil Craig, part 2 last week, just reflecting on his time at arriving at Norwood, and obviously the intricacies with the Crows coming into the AFL made it a little bit tougher on some of the SANFL clubs.
Yeah, and give Craigie his due. At least he admits he stuffed up. There was a few players too where Craigie admitted he was too sort of pig-headed and that, and Matty Robberin and Rodney Maynard sitting on the bench one game at Footy Park, both of them going, what the hell have we done, sort of thing. And, spoken obviously privately with Neil as well, and he admits he made mistakes, and,
we all do.
Things happen.
We all do. We thank Neil for his time for part 2 and part 3 coming up later in today's episode.
Yeah, well, it was a long interview, and we greatly appreciate Craigie for that.
Around the grounds.
Buckingham. Buckingham gets the wicket and Khawaja is out. The Redbacks win. You cannot believe it. You couldn't write a better script here. The Redbacks have come from the dead. They've come back and they've won this game by 3 runs.
Didn't deserve to get out or be the last player out in this innings, and they just jagged back. I don't know whether they got an inside edge on that though, but it hit the leg stump.
Mate, we kick off around the grounds today with the Redbacks pulling off the impossible. We did talk last week during our episode that we didn't think the Redbacks had any chance with Khawaja going the way that he did, and then we finished our episode. We sat back and watched a little bit, and miracles do happen.
It's quite amusing that I've teed off when they were 390 odd, and you 70 odd to win. They're cruising and pretty disappointing, and all of a sudden we get when we were recording, McSweeney took 2 wickets in that over. And hang on, we're back in this and that. And then it was another wicket just as I left, and then driving to pick my son up from his work, and pulled over a couple of times to check the score. Did the right thing. I did emphasise that. I did pull over.
Yep.
So they were 9 for us. I got to pick him up, and he was running late. And let's say there may have been a little bit of celebration in the Para Hills Woolworths car park the last wicket. So, yes.
Absolutely. I just remember getting your message going, what have we done? We've written them off.
Yeah.
And I did sort of reply back that it's amazing how miracles do happen.
Yes.
So, well done to the Redbacks, obviously,
amusing.
in winning the Sheffield Shield against Queensland up there. And absolute beautiful last ball there to get Kawaja. It nipped back beautifully, didn't it?
And Jordan Buckingham, I'm not sure if he's finished running yet for his celebrations. He may have jogged the whole way over to Perth for the Shield game in WA currently, which we haven't started well in. So,
no.
Yes.
We're currently 2 for 23 or 21 at the moment. Hunt out for 5 and Drew out for 5 as well. So we just need those other players to get past 5 at the moment, and we might be half a chance. But Western Australia won the toss and elected to bowl.
Always strong over there too.
Absolutely, and we have talked about that previously. We'll move on. The Redbacks, obviously, was our opening remarks. We move on to the World Cup. Some crucial semi-finals coming up, India v New Zealand.
Yeah, that tonight. So India obviously start favourite, and then the following night, Australia, South Africa, and there's poor weather predicted with a cyclone, but there is a reserve day. So that game may occur over 2 days. So hopefully there'll still be game played, because if they don't play at all, South Africa go through.
Obviously, the backup day was there just in case something did happen. I did hear that this morning on Breakfast Radio talking about it. Is there any chance of a change of venue?
Not at this late stage. No, it's too late now, I would have thought.
Fair call. Who are you tipping, mate? India or New Zealand?
I'll certainly be barracking for New Zealand, but no, you got to tip India. They've just demoralised everyone in the whole tournament so far, and they're bowling with Bumrah and then Jadeja. Sammy's had a very good tournament, so that they're bowling it. They seem to have a bit more depth than everyone else, but as we know, knockout finals,
anything can happen.
Yep.
And Australia v South Africa, what are your thoughts there? Who's the player that could come in and could go out? For me, it's probably Stoinis goes out.
Yeah, I think so.
And not Mitch Marshall.
Maxwell
comes back in. Yeah,
he's only, and look, Stoinis has only bowled 19 overs in the tournament, so. Maxwell's going to bowl. He's 10. So, I would think it'll be Stoinis.
And Zampa obviously leading the wicket takers, which is something that I hadn't really kept an eye on throughout the tournament, and then obviously got reminded of it today.
Yeah, he's started slowly, but he's been pretty consistent after the third game. He's been 2s and 3s and bowling reasonably economically too. So he's a pretty important bowler.
Which is exactly what you want over in India.
Yeah.
All right, we move on from cricket. We'll go to the AFL. Adelaide and Port Adelaide look like they're going to stick with their original draft picks at this stage. I know we've got a few days to go.
Yeah, I take that still with a grain of salt at the moment, because they can still swap on draft night. Look, I hope Adelaide don't take anything, and I've been very vocal. I'm very much hoping that Adelaide pick Taylor Goad. He's my big wish out of this draft.
Bit of a smoky that could come through. I'm a bit with you as well. But yeah, I sort of agree that I don't think that they need to change too much at the moment, not to move up 1 or 2 spots.
I don't see the point.
You give away too much.
Yeah, you're giving away a selection. Yep. So, I think it'd be crazy.
Yep. Thursday night footy for the first 14 rounds has been put on the agenda by the new Chief Executive Officer.
Great for TV, not so great for the stay of the home game, especially for country people.
Yep.
So I do get the beef on that side of it, but in terms of a spectator, nothing better than a Thursday night. You're either could be at the pub or at the cricket club, bowling club, whatever, and there's footy going on in the background.
Footy training between 5 and 7, and then sit back and have a meal and watch the game. Yeah, absolutely. Adelaide look like the draw is going to be fully released tomorrow, but we're hearing that it looks like Adelaide are going to be reasonably good winners out of this new draw based on obviously the result of last year and the negotiations that have happened in the background. Doesn't look like they're going to have to travel too much to Darwin or down to the Bulldogs. Ballarat.
Yeah. So, look, let's just wait and see when we see it. Look, ideally, it'd actually be a 17-round season. You'd play each other once. It would be fairer, but obviously we don't want to miss out on 6 weeks of footy. So,
I've actually got that a little bit of a scenario that I'll go through. It does take a little bit of time, so we won't worry about it today, about how we could possibly even up the draw a little bit more to sort of make it a little bit more even with a home and away type fixture. But we'll talk about that at a later date because this is a huge episode we've got to get through today. The opening round fixture has been named the opening round. With all 4 matches being played on the East Coast, obviously up in Brisbane.
Yes, to try and take advantage of NRL being in Las Vegas. I see the logic behind it. Some people are carrying on like pork chops about it. Mm-hmm. Oh, how dare they not be games of Victoria? And look, let's see the whole picture. Mm-hmm. It is a chance, therefore, to really drive the bus and hopefully get a good crowd for a GWS game, especially, and a Gold Coast game, Richmond Gold Coast. A lot of flavour there.
Yes.
So you'd think that'd be a sellout as well. So I think it's
big tick.
It's proactive, and let's at least applaud proactive behaviour. So.
Absolutely. We'll go through some of those matches very quickly. Sydney and Melbourne, that one's juicy for all sorts of reasons, especially around Grundy. Brisbane and Carlton, obviously the prelim rematch. So yes, there's going to be some interest there. Gold Coast and Richmond, obviously Hardwick.
Yep.
And then GWS and Collingwood. You really couldn't ask for a better opening round.
I think it's a great idea.
And obviously all the other teams have got buys, which then allows for certain buys throughout the season to occur. And yeah, you're right. They have been proactive and have taken the advantage away from the NRL. And you look at the NRL crowds v the AFL crowds, it's a really good opportunity to capture the extra crowd.
It's only a rumour too that Richmond are going to get the original Mrs. Hardwick in the coaching box for that game to add an even more of a flavour.
All right, we'll leave that one there.
Yes. Just a joke.
Of course, Gather Round was announced as well as part of it. It's amazing. There's absolutely no footy on TV at the moment apart from the AFLW, and yet here we are still talking about AFL mid-November, late November.
AFL's a media machine, and they basically want footy to be the number one topic, Aussie rules footy at AFL level.
24/7, 365.
There's a few people who correctly crack a bugbear that it's not AFL, it's Aussie rules footy.
Yep.
And I totally agree with that.
Yep.
They want it 366 days of the year.
Absolutely.
And you showed the AFL. Their worst one was when they released that thing at 7 o'clock in the morning when the Socceroos were playing. Like, that was pathetic.
Some interesting games there. Adelaide v Melbourne on the Thursday night to open it up. Port Adelaide v Essendon on the Friday night. So a couple of big nights there for the Crows and the Power. 2 games at Norwood.
Yes.
We have had a bit of banter online on our Facebook page with some people sort of saying why hasn't it been shared around to other venues. And we did sort of try to explain as we were going along that, the infrastructure is not quite there. The AFL have some strict rules about what they can and can't do.
There are a lot of stringent requirements of which Norwood does tick the box, and a lot of clubs' grounds don't. It also is part of the location in terms of the parade, the close proximity to Adelaide Oval. We're trying to get people to go to more tall games and all that. It's also the lighting at Norwood is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. The number of seating under cover is part of it. There's other things as well.
Yep.
In the end, I thought Norwood would get 1 game.
Yes.
I was very a few people at Norwood were more than confident that we were going to get 2.
Yep.
And turned out to be correct.
Yep, fair call. Obviously, Brisbane and North Melbourne do battle at Norwood Oval, which is moving. Obviously, they played each other last year.
Yeah, at Mount Barker.
It's funny that some of these teams didn't play against each other last year in Gather Round, and a couple are going to. It's just the quirk of the draw, I'm assuming.
Yeah, look, I think probably I am a little surprised that it's Richmond St Kilda at Norwood.
Mm-hmm.
I understand Hawthorn did actually ask to play again at Norwood, so I'm surprised it's not Hawthorn.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm a bit surprised on the two. One real big club, okay, you're expecting that they're not going to be dominating the competition the next year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that game will sell out very quickly. And I think all games will sell out.
Yep.
You only had to talk to people last year and which I did a lot last year and out and about and ended up talking to this guy from Victoria and he said, hey, have a look at my phone, mate. And there was all these messages from people saying, oh, geez, I wish I'd come over now. I'm definitely coming next year.
Yep.
And I really think that'll be the compounding effect. And, yeah, I'll be very surprised if all games aren't sold out.
Yep. Well, they sold out pretty quickly last time, and I dare say they're going to sell out pretty quickly again this year. Obviously, Mount Barker getting the Sydney West Coast and also the Gold Coast Giants game as well. So, again, smaller ground, looking for some interstate teams to play at those venues. So, sort of understand that. And it sounds like the government's already being pretty proactive for a game in the Barossa next year at this stage.
No, I think it'll happen. Just trying to pick my words very carefully, Pete. Yep. I'll say maybe the clubs up there didn't help themselves with not being united, and I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
On that one.
Hey, look, we did make mention a few times that the infrastructure has to be there, not only from the local government, the state government, and the federal government to make these things happen. And if one area gets tripped up, then obviously they all get tripped up. So. Anyway, we'll leave it there for the football as far as the gather-round goes. One last one, a bit of an observation that the Western Bulldogs are going through a bit of a review, which is a bit weird considering that they have changed their complete coaching staff around Luke Beveridge, and now they're going to go through a review. It just, I don't know, just something about it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. I reckon something's going to come out, you'd expect. So let's wait and see.
Nathan Burke, I think today was given his marching orders. Very interesting that 2 days after they announced that they're going to have a review, he's the first one to hit the chopping block.
Yeah, they did only win one game in the AFL W, so I'm not really surprised at that.
Yep.
So,
that's okay. All right, we'll leave AFL, the men's game, there for now. We'll move on to the AFL W, and Adelaide, a bit of a narrow loss against Brisbane in an entertaining clash at the Parade.
Yeah, I actually thought Brisbane were the better side overall. Brisbane dominated the first quarter and a half. Adelaide then came back a bit. Then Adelaide actually got on top at the start of the third quarter, but didn't kick any goals.
Mm-hmm.
And kept Brisbane in it. I thought Brisbane won in ruck and were very quick. I thought Brisbane's pace was really hurt Adelaide.
Adelaide get a double chance for obviously being the minor premiers. They get another chance to play at Norwood Oval this weekend against Sydney.
7:15 on Saturday night. I'll be at the Parade on the scoreboard. Mm-hmm. So looking forward to it.
Come and say hello. And just to finish off on the AFLW, 6 Crows players named in the All-Australian squad, and Port Adelaide had 2.
Yeah, Ebony Marinoff and Hatchard Chelsea Biddle were reasonably. I think Caitlin Gould, I've got to be honest, I'm a little surprised, and unfortunately she had a stinker on Saturday. She couldn't have caught a cold and that, so hopefully she'll rebound. Danielle Ponto's had a good year, and so is Anima Kelly, the Irish girl, provides run, and she's a good player.
Absolutely.
So Sydney 3, Hawthorn and Port with Abby Doric and Gemma Houghton. So, look.
Houghton's probably the big one for me from Port Adelaide that would probably make the squad. And I think Hatchard's had a fantastic year. Marinoff, we've talked about previously, gets a lot of the ball. And Ponta. I think Kelly's probably the big one for me that has taken the game a little bit by the scruff of the neck a few times and
she
really
runs and carries.
Yeah, found the ball easily.
But actually uses the ball a bit more, and that's the big criticism of Marinoff and Hatchard. And Ebony's kicking was terrible again on the weekend, turned it over a few times. And look, see ball, get ball, gives you 100%, but I want to see a bit more improvement in her by now.
Yep. Something to work on over the pre-season. But
yeah, well, you would have thought there would have been, as I said, surely we're beyond the good try.
Yep.
We're talking that it's been 8 years of it now and so much. I really think there should be a bit more and spots it. And I'm picking on Ebony, but she's not on a Pat Malone on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Spots to run to and things like that. I want to see a bit more improvement in that regard as well. I'm disappointed that there hasn't been more of an improvement in some areas.
Maybe once the season's finished, we might be able to get Matty Clark on and not only have a chat about his career, but maybe his coaching and maybe some philosophies, and ask him whether that's something that they're working towards with some of their top end players, rather than the see ball, get ball type movement. So
they are. I have spoken to Matty about it. But
Anyway, we'll move on. All right, we're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to have a look at the tennis. We're going to talk a little bit SANFL, a little bit on the A-League soccer, and then past players, past legends.
You're listening to the Game On podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
We kick off with tennis. We did talk about the tennis a little bit last week. In Australia needed to beat Kazakhstan, which they did. But unfortunately, in losing a couple of sets and also one rubber as well, didn't quite get them through to the semi-final stage. So unfortunately, Australia's Billie Jean Cup campaign has come to an end. And also Alicia Mollick, the South Australian, also the Australian coach for the Fed Cup team, or the Billie Jean Cup team, announced her retirement from coaching the team and tennis after the event.
Pretty incredible. I think if you'd all said, how many years has Alicia been coach, I don't think any of us would have guessed 10. It's remarkable how time just keeps going, at times, and gets away from us. So, yeah.
Obviously, having Ash Barty at her disposal there for a few years certainly made her job a little bit easier, but I think she's really fostered this new wave of Australian women's tennis through the hardest parts, and it'll be interesting to see who does replace her as the top job. So we'll keep a bit of an eye on that anyway. All right, we move on to the SANFL. A bit of a boost in the SANFL salary cap, which is going to happen over the next 3 years.
Yeah, so 15 odd grand a year, which does just helps a bit and probably helps us compete a little bit more against WA clubs and that for players. So, it's a step in the right direction.
Obviously, like the AFL program, a lot of footy club spends was reduced during the COVID period. We're now starting to see the flow-on effects that we're somewhat returning to normal, and these type of salaries are starting to inch their way back to where they were.
Let's just say there'll be big news from an SANFL club to come out this week in that sort of line of things.
Yep, fair call. Can't wait to hear. Can't give it away now, can you? No, fair call. All right. Not. Taylor Welsh moves across from the Woodville West Torrens to the Crows reserves side, obviously in preparation for a father-son draft in 2024.
While I understand that, I'm a little bit surprised. I haven't seen any reaction whatsoever from Woodville West Torrens, and geez, the kid can play big time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little surprised to grow up. He's played at Woodville West Torrens all the junior years and that. Now I get it. So he goes to Adelaide, so he's going to have at least a year in the system with the same rules and all that, which that certainly affected Max Michaelani's draft year, where Max was school footy, Norwood juniors, played league, and so many different bosses, and you saw him this year for Adelaide. All of a sudden, one set of rules and a lot easier. So I get that side of it, and think that's a step in the right direction. But I'm a little bit surprised you lose your superstar junior for that year when he could have been playing. So now, how do Woodville West Torrens people now are going to regard Tyler Welsh in the future? They're going to think of him as a Woodville West Torrens kid? Not really. We're at least this year, if he plays league, and he would have played probably 10 games overall in between the 18s commitments and then the end, like North Adelaide regard Connor Rosie, yes, he played in a premiership side and he dominated that 18s final series.
Yes.
He's a rooster. Well, I don't think they're going to think along Tyler that regards. And so, I'm a little bit surprised.
I have to agree with you. I can't disagree. But
I'd like to know more about it.
Yep.
I admit I meant to give Woodville West, to give Dave Kuzner a ring and just ask for a little bit more info today. I will do that this week.
Yep. Obviously, with the way that the AFL reserves are being set up, potentially for the future, it is an opportunity to get somebody that you are showing faith in a father-son investment to come to the club a year earlier to get them involved in the program. I get that side.
Yeah, so do I. I totally get that, and I get that he's probably better off being at Adelaide. So I understand the decision from the Welsh family, but I'm not comfortable in other ways.
Yep, fair call. Yep. All right, we move on to soccer. Adelaide United. Looked like everything was going along all right there for United, and they've conceded 5 goals in their loss to Sydney United.
Bit of humour on this one, Pete. Happened to be with a former guest of the show, David Wildy, at David Hamsey's 60th on Saturday night, and standing with Wilds, and Wilds has gone, I'll give you $1 million if you predict the score between Adelaide and Sydney. And I'm thinking, right, it's a bizarre scoreline.
Yep.
It can't be a scoreline Adelaide's way, if that wouldn't be. So I've gone Sydney up 4-0. And he's gone, geez, you were close, Malcolm, at 5-0. He said, geez, I'm nice and relieved and all that. So, yeah, a bit of a laugh between us at that stage. But, yeah, it wasn't the old sack the coach reaction. We've all seen it happen so many times.
Yep.
And, yeah, so.
Sydney United really came to town with everything to play for, and Adelaide, again, Viet playing a lot of younger type players. You know, you lose a good one. Irakundu was out, obviously, with the red card suspension. All right, he did make mention that, you know, he's only one 17-year-old player. They seem to come with the wrong attitude. So looked like he identified that was the problem right from the get-go. I have spoken with Mary, who has been on the podcast before, and her sentiments exactly. They just didn't turn up to play, and they got found out.
Yeah, very disappointing.
Absolutely. And before we get off the soccer, Irakundu has been confirmed now that on a multi-million-dollar deal for Bayern Munich.
Yeah, incredible results. I'm not sure the detail, whether he plays out the year or when he goes. I think we'll all find that out in the next few days. Mm-hmm. But, certainly, it's going to be virtually impossible to replace him.
Absolutely, but that transfer and some of that money, obviously, then gives Adelaide United a little bit of flexibility, and full marks to Carl Viet for playing younger players and giving them an opportunity to strut their stuff on the world stage. Adelaide United play Western United on Sunday, the 26th of November at 4:30. So tune in for that one there, and good luck, and hopefully they can bounce back from the 5-1
big time
defeat. All right, let's take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we've got Neil Craig Part 3.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Past players, past legends.
Well, you did make that point with interviewing you that you regretted not using Alan Stewart more.
Yeah. I had Alan Stewart and John Reid, but say John Reid was in a slightly different role, and was very supportive. But I had, in hindsight, I mean, I had Alan Stewart just down the corridor, who had great experience, had a calmness about him, had wisdom about him, and once again, if I had my time again, I would utilise his skills and his services so much more. Because you get, as a head coach, there are times when you get so busy, your head's like it's in the forest. Sometimes you need people who are one out, one back, just being able to say, hey, just let's just think this through. Are you really sure about that decision that you're making, or why are you doing that, or the way you did that press conference, or the way you spoke to that player, whatever. So, it's a throwaway line, Pete and Malcolm, but everyone needs a coach.
And I think Winnie helped Barmy a lot in that way as well. And the role to sort of, and it's become Barmy's strength. He's fantastic. More about just taking a bit of pressure off the coach at times and just deflecting things, and to stop footy for the coach being 24/7 and literally 24/7. That you let and things do escape. Family relationships in that side of it do get away from you because it's so consuming.
Yeah, so consuming, and you'll think there are times when you think you're the only person that can do the job, or a particular job, which is not true. And so it's, the role now of a senior coach, and I've only ever seen it pretty much at either AFL level or international level. Like the pressure and the responsibility and the accountability that goes with the job is huge, and you just need one or two people around you who can just give you that balance in your thinking and basically give you some feedback about what you're doing, because it's because of the position and the chair you sit in, it's very difficult to get good feedback. For someone to give feedback to the head coach. So you need someone whose role is to do that, and that's sort of been part of my role for Eddie Jones. That was part of my role with Stewie Jew. But the key thing for that to work, of course, is that the head coach, in the case of, say, Eddie Jones, for example, he wants that to happen. It's not something that you try and push on to the head coach, because if you do that, it's just a recipe for disaster.
I know you also said it's, again, a fine line. You speak glowingly of Brendan Bolton. Now, without someone like you saying that, people around the traps
hey, I'm a Carlton man.
have no idea. Craigie speaks.
Yep.
Neil's very open that Brendan Bolt's the best young coach he's been involved with. Now, that's not known around the footy traps, I don't reckon, in general, because you judge win-loss. He was hopeless. It's garbage.
So I would appoint Brendan Bolton as a head coach tomorrow, without any hesitation whatsoever. Now, and I'd have a good support around him.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I've been talking about. Just as I'd have good support around a more experienced coach as well. But once again, seems like in Australia, Malcolm and Peter, is that once you lose a position of a senior coach in Australia, there's an attitude that there's something wrong with you, and that you can't do the job. Whereas overseas, it nearly borders on the fact overseas, particularly in Europe and America, that unless you've actually had 2 or 3 different jobs, you won't get a job. Like they want
the way
people
around.
It's nearly the opposite. That they look for people who've had the experience of a degree of failure, have been in that environment, didn't work. What did you learn from it? So you need they look for people who've got what I call leadership limp, or a bit of leadership or a senior coaching scar tissue, right? As distinct from someone that's got to be new all the time. So it's just it's a different attitude that we have in Australia towards it.
Now, Neil, one question I had for you when I did interview you for my book, and I found it developed into a 3/4 hour conversation between us, so we don't want to go that long on it. But where I found you were fascinating and probably well ahead of your time and all that is the mental health angle and what the AFL could be doing for coaches and the whole mental health side of things, because it's such a vital topic.
Yeah, well, it's huge. It's, I call it. I mean, probably the common term at the moment is, the word they talk about well-being. I tend to call it performance well-being, because, and I look back on my days some times at the Adelaide Footy Club where I was so tired, and thought the best thing was to work harder and spend more time at it.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, it was just a spiral. There were probably times during my coaching times at Adelaide Footy, and I actually remember Stephen Trigg telling me one day to go home and saying to me that this is not the coach that we appointed, right? And I want the coach that we appointed. Now, you go home and you work out what support you need from us, because this can't continue. And it was, and that's what I call real care from your CEO, is that he recognised a change in my behaviour, and by the workload, the stress of the job, such a public sport, particularly in Adelaide, with Port Adelaide and the Crows.
Yep.
And it can be all consuming, and and you've got, and if any of our players get into that sort of situation, immediately we jump to their aid and make sure that they get some balance back in their life and get some better recovery or whatever the case may be. And yet, for some reason, we don't do that. We won't do that with the coaches.
Yeah.
We think it's a badge of honour as a coach.
Yeah.
To work more hours, to continue to front up, no matter how tired you are, whatever. And it's just such an unhealthy lifestyle to get into, and it's irresponsible for you as a head coach to go into that space. Mm. So, the well-being of your coach, is a big responsibility of the management of your footy club, is to make sure that that's in a good place, and not to treat it as a badge of honour to be there at 6 a.m. and still there at 7 p.m. And trying to do more than you should be doing, and not delegating. It's just crazy. It's just crazy, and it's irresponsible of the head coach, and it's irresponsible of clubs to allow that to happen.
I think we sort of saw that play out a little bit with Simpson this year from the West Coast. Is that there were times where you could visibly see that he is just exhausted and really needed that break. Yeah.
So you can, if you watch a lot of footy, and if you watch a lot of the press conferences of head coaches after the game, and you really observe it, you can pick it in coaches, when they're not travelling that well.
And it's just cliche city. They want to get out of there, and you can see they're exhausted. And
last place they want to be.
Yeah, and and yet it shouldn't be like that, because you've been appointed to do the job and do it really well, and you sit in an interview and you express yourself about, this is the way I'm going to go about it, and so you basically you're selling your vision and the way you were going to go about it. And so, and let's say a club says, okay, I like what I hear. That's exactly what we're after. And yet, when you get in the job, you allow it to take you in a different direction, and so you can't do the job.
Yeah.
And that's why it's irresponsible to allow yourself to get into that space.
That's well put, Craigie.
So you need to look after yourself, just as you expect your players to do, and that's why that additional support, mentor / whatever you want to call it, is why I say, if I had my time again, that's why that position would be so important, because that would help you maintain a balance in your thinking and what you're doing.
And what are you doing now, currently now, Neil?
Well, I've my contract with the Wallabies is finished.
Yep.
But that was always going to be the case in terms of, I've only ever been on contracts with the England, when I was working with England, with Eddie Jones, and also with the Wallabies this year. So, and of course Eddie's now finished with the Wallabies. Yeah. So, I won't continue on with the Wallabies. I mean, I was with the Wallabies only because Eddie wanted me there.
Yep.
So it's not, I'm not on staff or anything like that. So it's purely a contract consultancy job. So once again, enormous experience. So now I'm basically trying to live what I just spoke about, is trying to recover, get myself back healthy again, in terms of fatigue, fitness level, reintroduce myself back to my family, that type of thing.
Say hello to Chris again.
Yeah. So all that. And then, I'm sure something will come up where it'll, there'll be something that I want to do and feel like I can contribute, and hopefully, and that can be in a range of other sports, or probably the only thing I do like operating at the high performance end of sport. I mean, all the other levels of sport are really, really important, but my passion's at the upper end of sport. And so I like working, in the AFL, I like working at, in NRL, I like working at sort of, in the last period of time, rugby at international level, the national level and international level. So that's sort of where my passion is. So we'll see what happens.
Do you get an opportunity to sit back every now and then and just watch a game and not overanalyze it?
You sort of do. I mean, trouble is, I guess when you've been involved in it, Pete, for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's why I ask.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that if you watch it as a spectator, you'll see the game differently as distinct if you watch it as a coach. So there are times when, mainly on TV, I make a conscious effort. So I'm still going to sit here and watch this as a spectator, right? But then my mind drifts about, wonder why that's happening. What would you do? Like a quarter time, what would you be saying to these guys? You've just seen the game unfold, even though it's on television. So you go into coach mode pretty quickly. So, but anyway, that's enjoyable for me to do that.
Part of the nature, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's part of the nature of the beast. So that's okay. Yeah.
All right. We'll finish in our normal way, but I will just.
Yeah, no.
I'll entertain you here a bit, Pete. Let's go a few of Craigie's famous one-liners. It's better have an emptied house than a bad tenant. After throwing up when training hard. I love this one. The calipers don't lie, regards to how hard you train, how disciplined you have trained with your diet.
Yeah.
And a fat blowfly is a slow blowfly. In other words, get fit, you dickhead.
That's associated with the calipers doesn't lie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always known for his one-liners, Craigie.
Yeah.
Now,
so once again, it's interesting if you talk to guys that played in the era under Dennis Pagan, North Melbourne in particular. They all they talk about is some of the Pagan's one-liners, So sometimes what you find as a head coach, senior coach, you've got to be a bit of a storyteller. So to get your message across.
No, that's true, because I'm being honest. I've got your article open in front. That is the comment which has come back from Rue, especially to some extent from Nathan Bassett as well. Interestingly enough, the West Coast thing was probably Bass's best offer as well. So you've got that in common with him to have a chat about one day.
Yeah.
And that, so yeah, on that side of things. Now let's go back and see if you give the same answers here, Craigie. Best players you played with?
Yeah. Oh, Rick Davies, best I played with.
Yes, you always said that.
Yeah. No, Rick was he was a sensational player, particularly for his size and the position he played. But he could just take control of the game and have it eating out of his hand. And probably the best, probably the reason I really say that is because it was close to his last 1 or 2 years at Sturt. He was playing full forward.
Yeah,
just
dominated. He kicked 153 goals. Yeah, 153. Yep.
Like and a lot of those games, Malcolm, were on one leg.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he could just do stuff either in the ruck. Then you got a ruckman who absolutely dominated the game in SANFL. Okay, and if he'd gone to Victoria, he would have done something similar. And he did go to Victoria, but he went a bit late.
Went too late.
Yeah, in terms of total domination, he was still able to hold up. But to see what he would to do as a ruckman in our competition, and then to go to full forward and kick 153 goals, like that's just unbelievable. Like,
and these days at his height, he's playing midfield too. He's not rucking well and truly. He's shorter than Cripps.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been lucky enough to play with some really, really outstanding players, but he's the one that, when you ask that question, he's the one that comes to my mind really quickly. So
give us some others. Give us a few others as well. I want to see on your answers here, Craigie. A few others.
A few others that I've played with?
Yep.
Oh, well, I mean, he had Phil Carman.
Yes.
He had Paul Bagshaw at Sturt. Just unbelievable what Paul Bagshaw could do. I remember playing in an era against one stage there was Tony Antrobus, Mark Nayley, John Platten,
Tony McGuinness,
and who else was there? There was someone else, another little rover. Like, it was nightmare stuff playing against these guys. And they were just unbelievable players. Or Tony McGuinness, right? Just a roving contingent, you play against them week after week. I mean, Norwood, you had guys like Phil Curran, you had Phil Gallagher. I mean, Winnie in his own way, Greg Turnbull was like Greg Turnbull's career was going through the roof until he had that really bad knee injury, and he's still able to come back and play some really quality football. But what Greg Turnbull could have been, and we saw glimpses of that. Michael Aish, and then I only mentioned Gary McIntosh. It just goes on and on. Yeah. So once again, how lucky was I to be able to be either coach or to be able to play.
All right, let's see if you give the same answer here, Craig.
Well, can I just jump before you ask this question? What about your state of origin in '86? Was there somebody that you really sort of didn't like playing against? Not that they weren't a good guy or anything, but you just hated playing against them, but you got to play with them and really thoroughly enjoyed that. Was there anyone from that team that jumps out at you a little bit? I mean, Kernahan, McDermott, McGuinness.
Yeah, well, I mean, Stephen Kernahan was a sensational player, and to be honest with you, Peter, I mean, I was a very territorial type person. Like, I didn't like opposition players at all. And I'm still a bit like that, particularly on game day. I mean, I'm happy to associate with them afterwards, but not.
Yep,
not
white line fever. Yep.
Well, it's not so much. I just think that they were there to compete against them anyway. Yep. So no, I mean, once again, that's where you sort of really see up close guys like Johnny Platten, for example, and Stephen Kernahan. Neville Roberts at that stage, was playing State of Origin. Then you play against, then you play against the Victorian sides. I remember standing Neil Danaher at one stage. I was half forward flank and he was half back flank. Then those end of season games, like Barry Cable, Brent Croswell, Ross Glendinning in North Melbourne, Malcolm Blight, Keith Gregg, it's just unbelievable, like the quality of player that you get exposed to. So, I mean, I haven't answered your question, but,
hardest opponent. Let's see if you give the same answer here, because this was one for left field. I wasn't expecting when I...
Yeah, I know. I mean, the guy that played South Adelaide.
Yes, Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett.
Kennett?
Yeah, Bennett.
Michael Kennett or Bennett?
Bennett.
Yeah.
B.
No, he's toughest player I played against. In terms
yeah, incredible.
Always, whenever we played South, that was the guy that was more positional back in those days. Like you weren't all over the ground. So I found him a really tough player to play against.
Any others that spring to mind? Obviously, that got under your skin a little bit.
Not under my skin. I remember, a really difficult opponent and a lovely man, and unfortunately not with us anymore. But Russell Ebert. I remember I was coming through, and I had to stand Russell a couple of times as a centreman back in those days. And like he was an athletic guy. He was strong. He was highly skilled. And so you remember all that. But the biggest thing I remember about Russell Ebert is that for some reason, every time I would play against Port Adelaide, down at Port Adelaide, he made an effort to take me up into their change rooms and be part of their social bit at the end. And there was no reason why he had to do that, but he did. And so isn't it amazing that he was such an unbelievable player, probably one of the, if not the best in the SANFL, even by McGarry medals. But and yet my memory of Russell is the way he made me feel.
No, I actually totally get that. I got a call and asked to organise someone from Norwood for a charity night for a sick youngster, and I organised Aishi and went along, and Russell was one of the speakers, and Russell came up to me and went, right, here's my number, Malcolm. Anytime you need anything, charity-wise, you ring me. Yeah. 4 times I rang him, 4 times he delivered. And, I didn't know him. that night. He just came bang straight up to me. Right, this is what you're doing, and bugger how good he was at football. That's where he was incredible.
Yeah. So I have a special memory for Russell. As I said, only because of the way he made me feel.
Yep.
And he made me feel valued. He made me feel special. He took me into his environment. And that was back when I was playing at Norwood. Like that's a Norwood Port. Like that's unheard of.
Yeah.
And yet he had the capacity to do that. So it was sensational.
We'll get you out of here on this one, unless Malcolm's got any.
Now, Chris's support over the journey, just quickly, Craigie.
Good call.
Oh well, the family support is huge.
And your kids, yep.
Yeah, the whole thing. That's the whole family aspect of it is really, really important, particularly when you. I mean, there's a playing side of things, and then of course the extension of it is when you go into coaching. And the coaching one is much more difficult from a family perspective, because of just the responsibility of the job that you've got. And so I've been really lucky in that space, Malcolm and Peter, because there's been support there without being without them being totally absorbed by the sport. So if you know what I mean, like they've been there, they've been supportive, but it hasn't been their life, and it's been really healthy for me, because it's a tendency to make it your life. But I mean, don't get me wrong, they've been interested. They would go to the sport, they would to be there supportive, but they had other things in their lives as well. So there was a really good balance there for me to come home to a household where it wasn't all footy again, Yep. It was there's a whole range of other stuff going on. So, and I've also seen the opposite of that, where the family unit's been totally involved in it, and sometimes it's been really good, but there's also been that can be a bit of a disaster as well, because it just becomes
too much.
Particularly when things are tough, it becomes really difficult. But no. You can't do it unless you've got the support.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this one, mate. Favourite players you like just keeping an eye on these days? Is there a few floating around in the AFL that you just keep your eye on every now and then?
Well, I mean, I've got great fond memories of, and they're not obviously playing anymore, but you sort of follow them because. When I coached the Adelaide Footy Club, once again, how lucky was I to be able to have access to a Rashudo, a Goodwin, Edwards, McLeod, Ben Hart. It goes on and on. So, obviously, when I finished Adelaide, you follow those through, and some finished anyway. But then it's sort of. My time at Gold Coast, I really enjoyed my time at Gold Coast, because there was some really exceptional young talent coming through there, and guys like, for example,
there is
Matty
this year
Rowell,
as well,
Matty Rowell, and say Noah Anderson, for example.
Yep. Two
quality young men, absolute quality.
You wait till you see Walter this year too, Craigie.
Yeah.
Oof,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about these guys actually in their character.
Yep.
Okay. And in their capacity to lead and whatever, as well as their playing ability. And so, when you've sort of been exposed to that sort of person for a little period, you do sit back and whilst you're not directly involved anymore, you do have an interest just to see how they're going, and just keep an eye on what's going on. And it's the same with some of the rugby guys, for England that I spent sort of 6 or 7 years with, in just the latest World Cup that's happened. They were playing off the third position, and so there was some, there's 3 or 4 guys that you get quite close to.
Yeah.
That you're watching them from afar, on the other side of the world. So you're right, Pete. You don't watch them all, but there are certain ones, and for a range of different reasons, why you have that connection. and you watch them, and so you should and enjoy
absolutely.
it. You know?
And that's why I put the question to you that now that you've stepped away from some of those roles, that you do keep a bit of an eye on a couple of them as you go along, and obviously wish them the absolute best, and they'll cross your path again at some stage.
I sent a text the other day, and I'm happy to share this. I sent a text the other day to a guy called Ben Youngs. Now, Ben Youngs has played has got more caps than anyone else in the history of England rugby. I think it's about 127 caps or something like that. That's a huge feat.
Yeah.
So in the history of the game over there, and he played his last game in the game just gone by from England. And so I've spent a lot of time with Ben, and I had a lot of fun with him. He's got a great personality and whatever. So immediately when you find out that that's his last game, you can't wait to get onto the WhatsApp and just send him a text, congratulate him on his career and what he's done and whatever, because you have that connection.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's all part of the joy of which you get out of sport.
Hey, Craigie, greatly appreciated your time. Always love chatting to you. Always listen and learn. Fascinating as always. Greatly appreciated, Neil Passmore. Craig.
Good on you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Pete, and thanks, Malcolm.
Thank you, Neil. And
it's been a good opportunity to have a chat, eh?
Absolutely.
Hopefully you don't have to edit too much out of it, mate.
No, I don't think I will. That's for sure. We've actually covered pretty much everything that we wanted to cover tonight, and absolutely loved it. So thank you once again for your time.
Thanks, Craigie.
Yeah, guys.
Thanks, Craigie.
See you, boys.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
And once again, we thank Neil Craig for his time there, and like we did say a little bit earlier, that the interview did go for a little bit longer, and we did split it up, obviously, to make it a bit more manageable for everybody into 3 parts. And just his progression, obviously, into coaching, we talked about in episode 2 there, and then moving on to the Crows, and then on to the English rugby side was fascinating,
and
with the Olympics.
Cycling, the Olympics, and the relationship with Charlie Walsh. And, it's certainly a really full lot, and you could have kept going for hours with Neil. So,
absolutely, and we thank him once again.
Happy days.
All right, we'll kick off Happy Days with happy birthday this week to William Hamill from the Adelaide Crows. Defender drafted in 2017. He was recruited by the Crows with pick 30 in the national draft. In 2018 national draft. Hamill represented Victoria country at the AFL Under-18 Championships. He also played with the Dandenong Stingrays in the NAB League for 2 seasons. He debuted for the Crows in a 53-point loss against Gold Coast Suns in the 3rd round of the 2020 season. A defender.
Yeah, look, I've got a fair bit of time for Will. He's just been really unlucky with concussion and real debatable. Look, he's been delisted and been promised to be rookie drafted again. You can argue, and Cornsy's probably pretty succinct on that, whether that's correct side of things and whether it's exploitation. Yeah, that's debatable.
Yep.
We'd all love to be on an AFL list. So, but I just wish Will all the best. That's more important. Had the pleasure of being with his father at a couple of SANFL finals last year. So, wish Will all the best.
Yep. Happy birthday to him this week.
Yes.
Hopefully he gets to enjoy 23 years of age this week. I think this is going to be his year. He's going to get good opportunity.
Oh, look, he can play. It's not the ability. It's been so many concussions, and he's probably one more away. And so we just need him to have some luck. And if luck follows him, I'm sure he'll be in the AFL side.
Absolutely. All right, we move on to tennis. 1991, an All-American final. Pete Sampras wins his first of 5 ATP Tour World Championships tennis titles with a 3-6, 7-6, 6-3, 6-4 victory over Jim Courier in Frankfurt, Germany.
Yeah, look, one of the all-time greats. Sampras, he's certainly in the ballpark discussion for one. And, of course, Jim Courier, we all respect him and all that. Probably as much through his commentary as tennis. I think
very insightful.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Absolutely. And Jim Courier there through the mid-90s went through a bit of a purple patch and obviously winning 2 Australian Opens and famous for jumping into the Yarra.
Yes. Yeah, survived the Yarra. Well played.
He did. All right, we move on to car racing. 1960, Australian driver Jack Brabham finishes 4th in the season-ending USA Grand Prix at Riverside Raceway to retain his F1 World Drivers' Championship by 9 points from Bruce McLaren of New Zealand.
He's still the one we think of, isn't he? still think of Jack Brabham, and that pushing his car to get it thing over the line, and he's a long time ago and all that, but he's still forefront, and that's one of the all-time greats, and massively respected in the car racing industry is probably the best way of putting it.
Absolutely, and obviously with his success, we're hoping for Ricciardo and Piastri to have their success so they can take that mantle over from Brabham as well. But you're right, he is the one that we all look to. All right, we move on to the Olympics. We're going way back now in 1906. London was selected to host the 1908 Olympics.
Yeah, I missed that one, mate. Didn't get to that one.
So did I. Unfortunately, tickets were hard to come by in all forms. And a little bit of fun to finish off with 1902. This week in 1902, cycling, Jeff Lefevre.
Henry, I reckon.
Yeah, I reckon it's Henry.
Yep.
Henry Destarange create the Tour de France bicycle race. Again, hard to get tickets for.
Yeah, and wow, you've got to say that is probably the most cycling. That is the numero uno tick box event in cycling.
And that one, when that one came across my my desk there, 1902. That's a fair way back for a sport that has now become one of the bucket list items for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you look at the Australian summer with the Tour Down Under and you realise how far that event has come, and those guys really started it off.
Yeah, no, massive tick on that one.
Let's get into the big finish.
Extra time. Big finish.
Kick off with baseball. Adelaide looking to go back-to-back, host the Brisbane Bandits here at West Beach in Adelaide this weekend.
Yeah, the start of the season. So we always any Adelaide team wins a championship, we celebrate, we claim, we jump aboard that very quickly. Wish them all the best for the upcoming season.
Absolutely. Looking to go back-to-back, which would be amazing considering it took them so long to win one. They look like they've recruited fairly well with a bit of depth and experience with some overseas players to sort of complement some of the local talent as well.
Does seem to be on the surface. So, yeah.
Interesting to
promising
see.
On the surface.
Interesting to see how these things gel, but players often move around and play in different leagues all the time. It's just a matter of you doing your job and doing it to the best of your ability. And we wish the Adelaide Giants a good season, and I might try and get down to a couple of games, I reckon.
Yep.
All right, lawn bowls. This one's in my wheelhouse a little bit.
That's you, Pete.
BPL 18 has started at Club Pine Rivers up on the sunny Gold Coast. The first couple of days have been completed. Adelaide have a bit of work to do after a bit of a tough opening few days, so we wish the Adelaide Pioneers the best of luck, but they have been in this situation before where the first couple of days have been a bit scratchy, sort of finding their feet a little bit, and then they sort of just scrape into the finals and then go quite well. So I'm hoping that this year is like most years in that they find themselves hopefully at the business end at the end of the week.
No Matthews, no South Australia is my opinion, mate.
Unfortunately, I'm a bit out of play at the moment, so best of luck to the Adelaide Pioneers. All right, Car racing, Adelaide 500 arrives in Adelaide next week.
Yep, the road closures and all that will be going full bore. But, exciting for South Australia. And, look, massive tick again for Peter Malinauskas for mine to get it back and back here, back where it should be. And,
Look, it's one of the best street circuits in the world. It's been told many, many times that it's one of the best street circuits going around. And you're right, getting it back to the streets of Adelaide is fantastic. Obviously, the Bend has its place as well. But there's just something about the street circuit. Yeah, all right, the road closures and everything that goes along with it. But, geez, it's a great event.
But it gets Adelaide live. A person walks out of it and bang, they're into the East End, the restaurants, and so it's a really important thing on business side of things. And a lot of businesses with COVID, especially, so that next week, and they're flat out every business basically in East End. So that's where I think people against it don't really think the whole picture.
South Australian drivers Todd Hazelwood and Scott Pye will both be racing their final supercars race as full-time drivers at their home track. So thought I'd add that one in there as a little bit of a South Australian flavour, and we wish them the best this weekend. Before we move off of that, LIV Golf was also announced as well, talking about hotels and restaurants and events. You've got the supercars, the gather round, and the LIV Golf. 3 big ticks as far as sporting events go, and 3 big events that sell out pretty much every hotel.
Yep.
Restaurants are bustling. The city is going completely nuts, and obviously the regions are benefiting from it as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about the LIV Golf next week, but I did want to sort of bring that up as part of
Nick Haslam as well on that one. So I've been meaning to do that for a while.
Absolutely. NFL, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Ravens look like the front runners at this stage after round 10. Believe it or not, there's only 91 days until the Super Bowl, which is going to be hosted in Las Vegas, which is going to be a huge event. Huge event.
Yep. No, as you said, well and truly the hottest ticket. Good luck on that one.
Absolutely. I don't think I'm going to get there.
No, I'm confident I won't be there, mate.
But enjoying it on a Monday morning has always been a favourite pastime when it is played. All right, we move on to basketball. I've given up on the 36ers. I can't predict what they're going to do from week to week.
I will say this. Wilds and I actually spoke about the 36 on Saturday night. Whatever they're doing, there's one thing you've got to give them, and basketball, a massive tick. The Adelaide 36ers, let's be honest, have struggled. You can say they've stunk for a long time. They've struggled.
Sellout crowds?
Yeah, the crowd-wise things on what basketball are managing to do, and it's consistent, is incredible. And I think there's probably other sports got to go, hang on, what are they doing? And what are they doing right? What can we do to modify? And that's where you've got to give basketball the massive tick.
Absolutely. Adelaide seems to have the talent. They seem to have the coaching staff, but not getting the results. Frustrating from my point of view. But look, they're my Jekyll and Hyde team of the year at the moment. I did talk during the footy season that Fremantle were a little bit of that Jekyll and Hyde side. I think Adelaide 36ers have to be put into that category as well. I just can't quite pick up what they're doing, but like you said, they're still getting crowds of 8,000-9,000 at the entertainment centre and doing quite well. And yeah, that is the hottest ticket in town at times.
Considering they've struggled now for probably at least the last 5, probably towards the last 10 years, really, and yet it's a huge ticket item is, again...
Big tick.
Yeah, that's the massive one.
All right, and to finish off today, mate, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll kick off with your good.
I'll go the Redbacks getting up.
Yep.
Like, let's be honest, as a South Australian cricket nut, yes, I'm one of those weird people who go to Shield games. Yeah, that was great. The bad was, I'll go the Adelaide AFL W. That was disappointing. Not so much bad, it was just didn't quite click and gel, and so that was probably disappointing. Not so much ugly, but just disappointing.
Yep. And you're ugly?
I'll have to concentrate, come up with a couple of people to bag next week.
My good for the week was probably the LIV Golf and the gather round being announced.
Yes.
2 big events. Obviously, hospitality and hotel industry would be loving the fact that that's all locked in now.
Yep.
Dates are locked in. They can start planning around that. My bad for the week, a little bit like you, I expected the Crows and Brisbane to be a bit of a tight game, but some of their passages of play left me scratching my head at times. And my ugly for the week has probably been the 36ers. Unfortunately, I can't say anything positive that I really want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but unfortunately, a bit like United, didn't quite get the job done.
I want to give a tick to Conway from Brisbane. Had the pleasure just ran into a guy, started having a chat on Sunday Arvo, and he said, I'm from Brisbane. I said, how long are you down for, mate? He said, I actually just came down for the AFL W game. My daughter plays for Brisbane. Yep. And I said, I happen to be doing the scoreboard, mate. So he showed me a clip and that. And look, once I saw the picture, I actually said, well, I'm not bullshitting you, mate. I thought she was probably best on ground on that. And look, it was also John showed me a clip. His wife is no longer with us. They've died of cancer and that. And he sort of, not really sure what to say here. And I just said, look, no worries, mate. Appreciate you being honest. And so all the best to Brisbane in that way. And as I said, it was a pleasure to meet John.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, mate, we'll wrap up this week's episode. We once again thank Neil Craig for his time over the last couple of weeks in being able to split that interview up.
Yep.
Obviously, a new interview with somebody next week.
Yep.
We'll see who's on the dance card, and we'll obviously get that one up and running. But as per usual, mate, we promise to do better.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.